Hi, I'm joined by Michael Anastasi, that was APSE president in 2011, 2012, while at the Salt Lake Tribune. He's currently the USA Today Network South regional editor and the vice president and editor for the Tennessean in Nashville. Thanks for joining me, Michael.
Hello, how's it going, Eric?
It's good. How'd you get involved with APSE?
I may be the longest serving APSE member right now. I joined the organization back in 1988 when I was sports editor of the Davis Enterprise in Davis, California. And that was a long time ago, Eric.
How'd you move up to become of the organization?
Yeah. When you've been around as long as I have, I don't know if there was a way to avoid that. But like a lot of people, I began getting involved by first participating in the contest, then going to regional meetings. Um, I was lucky that in 1992, I believe it was, the conferences in San Francisco, and where I was working in Northern California at the time. So I was able to, as a small newspaper editor, able to go to the conference for the first time at a fairly minimal cost, and I had the chance to meet a lot of the leaders who were very gracious to me at that time, and really encouraged me to get involved, which I began doing. And it wasn't too long after that that I went to the Los Angeles Daily News and was in LA for a number of years. And that's when my participation really increased. We had a great region at that time, a lot of great editors, a lot of great sports journalism that was arguably leading the country. And we met without fail every year in Las Vegas for a number of years, and later in LA. And so it was is a really strong region. And from there, I eventually joined national leadership. In fact, when I joined national leadership, I was kind of out of sports. I
Yeah.
still remained a part of APSE because it was a very important organization for me, and I oversaw APSE. Um, uh, and I've continued to remain involved in it, even though I haven't been a sports editor for quite some time.
Yeah. You talking about going to your first conference there in San Francisco? That's kind of how it worked out for me. Attending my first conference in Chicago there in 2012. I was essentially the night sports editor at a small paper in Charleston, Illinois, and with it being in Chicago, I was able to go up for my first conference there in Chicago. What do you remember about putting on that conference in Chicago?
Um, gosh, that was that. Well, I think that was the conference in which we um, uh, introduced our first graduating class of the APSE Diversity Fellowship program, and so that was a really big thing for me personally. It's one thing to say you're going to do something; it's something else to actually make it happen in reality. And I was very proud of my year as president, consequently, uh, for that reason. And I think we had a really strong leadership team the entire time I was in national office. Uh, I had the honor of working with some really strong uh, fellow officers, and I thought we got a lot accomplished. So um, I don't know that I remember anything specifically. I've been to so many conferences and other things on the road that things begin blending together.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sure there were some shenanigans that I had to tamp down because it seems like I was trying to do that a lot
Yeah.
back in those years. But uh, it all worked out.
That conference, APSC held its conference in conjunction with Awesome. What do you remember about
Oh
what
yeah.
went into that happening?
Yeah, so I had been a member of Awesome, an active member for a number of years, and um, I remember a number of things. So because I was an active member, in fact, in 2008 or 2009, I actually was recognized by the organization as the regional chair of the year, which was kind of a cool thing because I'm pretty sure I was the only male to have received that honor. But we began feeling the economic pressures. 2008, of course, was when things really turned down significantly for everyone in our business, and over the ensuing few years, that it was hard to not talk about the financial pressures, the change in our industry, and how we could be successful moving ahead. And it seemed like there was a lot of synergy between what Awesome was looking for in a conference and what APSE could be looking for in a conference, and that we should give that a shot, and see if we couldn't save some of the duplicative costs, right? So when you have a conference, it costs so much money to commit to a hotel. The meals that come with that cost so much money. There's these fixed costs, and the more people that we can get participating in the conference, the easier it is to afford those costs. And that doesn't necessarily mean we have to have the same programming, right? The programming can still be different, but if we can share some of those costs, and then the synergy that can be had when those groups meet, meeting in the bars, meeting in the other programming that takes place, it's just great for networking. And it hasn't happened since. And I would encourage the organizations to continue trying to seek opportunities to do that.
Yeah. What are some other things you're proud of from your time as APSE president?
Well, of course, the Diversity Fellowship program would be the biggest thing. And I gave a speech in 2011 when I announced it that was pretty provocative. And I used the word horseshit intentionally, and that got a lot of attention at that time. And that horseshit was in reference to the industry's efforts. Not efforts are not correct, but our success at diversifying the workforce. And I'm very proud that 12 years later, the program is stronger than ever, having formed a 501c3 4 years ago now, believe it or not, and really opening up our fundraising universe. And I'm really proud of the impact that those graduates have had on the industry and beyond. We've graduated 48 fellows. We have 6 in the program this year, and virtually every single one has been promoted into management or within management. Some of them have been promoted multiple times. You're a great example of that, Eric. Yourself, having been promoted multiple times, right, and new jobs, and you're very typical of what we've seen. Not everyone has stayed in sports. Some have gone to greater newsroom roles, and that is awesome as well. Plus, some have left the business, as you might imagine, but they're still impacting the world, right? And that's, I mean, that's just tremendous. The rewarding thing about our program as well is that people who have graduated have now become leaders of it themselves, and so I'm really optimistic about it continuing many years. I've always paid homage to the Sports Journalism Institute, Sandy Bailey and Leon and Greg Lee. That's in their 31st year, and directly inspired our program. And that's what we want to see happen here. But beyond the fellowship program, there are quite a few things that happened that year. Perhaps the most significant was that was the year that we radically changed voting for the Red Smith Award. Up until that time, there was a very small group of people who were choosing the Red Smith winner, every year. Prior Red Smith winners and APSP presidents, and I actually don't remember the voting rules at that time precisely, but it was a handful of people, and I think those rules were put into place for a good reason. We wanted to make sure that very knowledgeable people about the industry were making the decision for sports journalism's most prestigious award, a Lifetime Achievement Award. But I felt that the time had come for us to take a different approach on that, that we could still ensure that tremendous thought went behind the selection process and care, but also that the selection group ultimately was much more diverse, and with the goal of a much more diverse group of honorees being chosen. And I think if you look at the winners of the Red Smith Award over the last decade, you'll see a much more diverse slate of honorees who are all more than worthy and deserving. Now anyone who has been an APSE member for 10 years or more has the opportunity to vote, along with a number of other criteria. And I think that's really important. If you've been a sports editor for 10 years, you have been in this industry that long, you've been dedicated to the organization that long, I think that's something that you have earned. And so I'm really proud of that. And I think we've seen the results of that.
What's some of the work that went into getting the Diversity Fellowship launched?
Well, one of the keys for any APSE president is your time in office is finite. A year is really a very brief amount of time. And one of the things that, having been in the organization for so long and having had the opportunity to observe so many presidents before me and officers, was that I realized that you have to have your agenda pretty much in place on the day you move into office. In fact, probably need to have it in place before you move into office, because it's going to take some time to make things happen. And if you're just starting to think about what you're going to do when you're in office, it is going to be very difficult to get things done. So really, the work for the fellowship program started back when I was the second vice president, and as I began looking ahead and what did I want to have happen, and I had been working in the diversity space my whole career. That's something that was very important to me, and I realized I had this opportunity to, in this moment, to do something really important. And so, the idea of the program came to me, and what I started doing before I even went into office was laying the groundwork with all the people that I knew whose support would be important, and that would mean a lot of fellow members, past presidents, helping them see the vision of this, gaining their advice, what they saw as the pitfalls, what they saw as the challenges, and really kind of working through all of those problems before we even got to the point of announcing something. The other thing was looking for partners who could partner with us on this. It was very clear that APSE could not do it alone. And one of our key early partners was Indiana Purdue University in Indianapolis, where Tim Franklin was at that time. Later, Malcolm Moran went to work there. And partnering with us on a place, right? We need a physical space to go to, helping us subsidize costs. Having a central place to go. Indianapolis was a great meeting place for those first few years. And so getting partners like that on board. And our partners have grown over time. Since 2016, we've moved our diversity weekend, which is the big opening retreat weekend, to Nashville. In part, that's because I'm here and it makes it a lot easier for me, but also because of the partners that we have in place in this city. And I think we've continued to be able to make the program stronger. And that's been a goal of making it stronger each year than it was the prior year.
Yeah. What has APSE meant to you professionally?
Yeah, I think it's meant professional excellence in 2 words. And, I have a lot of friends. It also means friendship. I've many, if not most, of my closest friends in the industry have come through APSE, and we have people who are members from every corner of the country, who have every background you can imagine, who are at the largest and most prestigious news organizations, not only in the country, but the world. And then there are those who are serving their community, and they're all respected. And I think what binds them all too is a commitment to excellence. And I think that was really important for me. Pardon me. In my formation and who I am, and someone who stands for professional excellence. And that's what I've been about my entire career. And APSE was a big part of of creating that within me.
What's some advice that you'd have for future presidents of APSE?
Well, I kind of alluded to, I think, the number one piece of advice, which is you can't wait till day one to get started.
Yeah.
And so you really got to have your agenda down well before you step into office. I would encourage people to think big, and that would probably be my second biggest piece of advice. Think big, think early, get going, make a difference. And otherwise, I think every president has shaped APSE in their own way, but also be prepared to give APSE your best. We're in a tough business that takes a lot out of us, and now we're asking you as a president to work close to another full-time job. And some people that's pretty daunting, I think, for most of us. But you can do anything for a year, is the way I think I would look at it, and to really give the organization your all. You won't have this opportunity again. Don't look at it as simply a check mark for a resume. Look at it as your opportunity to make a lasting change on the industry.
Michael, is there anything else you want to add about your experience with APSE or any other fond memories?
Well, I would encourage. I have lots of fond memories. Probably some of them aren't appropriate to share on a video like this, but there are a lot of fun. A lot of fun was had over the years too, and that's a really important part of our business. That this is really hard. We're really serious. As we just said a moment ago, professional excellence is the standard, but also make sure that you're having fun. When we are all in the old folks' home years from now, looking back, on things. We're probably not going to remember the stories that we thought were so big at the time.
Yeah.
We're not going to remember all of the work that we had on the to-do list. What we are going to remember is the relationships that we built within the industry and how we honored them.
Yeah.
And were we good friends? Were we good colleagues? And so keep that first and foremost in mind. And I would really encourage any younger journalists who happen to be seeing this to get involved. Anyone can show up at a meeting. Everyone has a voice. Showing up is the beginning of being involved in the APSE, and where it goes from there is up to you.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
All right.